Hey, good afternoon, fam. Good afternoon. It's been a while. It's been a while. I haven't been on live in a minute now. I've been busy, just working, just hustling, right? Trying to build a business and and make things better. Let's put it that way, right? So listen, tonight's topic, tonight's topic is life insurance with living benefits. Life insurance with living benefits and why waiting is so dangerous, right? So, as you guys are getting on in here, I wanna because I've been around now in the industry for about almost 18 years, and I've built quite a pretty decent sized book of business. And in doing so, obviously, people have had to file claims and things like that. And I've had to help people, go through that process. And I'm going to share a few stories with you guys. This is recently, this is in the past 2 to 3 months, um, to individuals, right? So I have a client in Georgia, right? Give me a second, guys. So I have a client in Georgia, who she called me. Her parents are actually clients of mine also, and she said, "Hey, listen, my dad is not doing well, and bills are piling up. Everything is is on my mom. The policy that you open for us, you know, what kind of benefits does it have? What can we do?" So I started, asking questions in reference to what's going on with the father, and he has some health conditions, and we filed a claim on the critical illness side for the dad, and they send them a pretty decent size, check, which actually helped them sustain for a few months or so. Okay, so that's one. The second one is the most recent, which happened 2 Fridays ago, I believe. Yeah, 2 Fridays ago. So I had a client that been with me now for over 10 years, and she recently found out that she had stage 3 breast cancer. She actually found out last year, May of last year. And I was like, "Why are you just calling me now?" And she's like, "Oh, I didn't know that my life insurance has this." It wasn't until she got like her statement in the mail, and the statement was list like a bunch of benefits that her policy, may have. And then she called me and said, "Hey, Maxwell, I got this statement in the mail. Does my policy have this? The one you opened for me?" I was like, "Yeah." So we helped file a claim for her. I believe she's entitled to 90% of her policy if she wants to. But I believe she's only going to take about maybe 45 to 50% of her death benefit out. So this is what I want to talk about today with you guys. And I'm going to ask you guys a serious question tonight, right? I'm going to ask you a serious question. And that question is this: if you got sick tomorrow, would your bill stop or would they keep coming? It's a legitimate question. If you got sick tomorrow, would your bill stop or would they keep coming? I want to think about that for a second. And I'm going to keep asking this question throughout the live because I think this is something that a lot of people do not consider. A lot of people don't think about this until it happens to them. If you got sick tomorrow, would your bill stop or would they keep coming? That's your mortgage, that's your rent, that's your car note, that's your utilities, that's your groceries, right? Right? Hey, listen, if you're on this live right now, you're watching. This is a very serious topic. I want you guys to invite people to get on this live today. I want you guys to invite people to get on this live because you're gonna learn a lot today on this live, right? Again, the question I want you guys to keep in mind is if you got sick tomorrow, would your bills stop or would they keep coming? Right? And that's your mortgage, your rent, your car note, your utilities, groceries, things like that. Okay? Your bills don't care what happened to you. I just want you to understand that. Your bills don't care what happens to you. They're going to keep coming. Right? They're going to keep coming. Now, most people think life insurance only pay when you die. And that is the old type of life insurance. 90% of Cassandra, how you doing? I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. Welcome to this live. It's gonna it's gonna be a good one, man. This is gonna be a lot of education, today. So just things that I believe people need to know, to be honest with you. Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna and I pose a question, right? And that question is if you got sick tomorrow, would your bills stop or would they keep coming? Most people don't think about this. Most people do not consider or think about this. Okay. And the bills again, we're talking about things like mortgage, rent, car note, utilities, groceries. I would even throw in daycare into that. Even providing for a loved one because you know, some people who are taking care of mom and dad or family members actually fall sick, and not because these people are dependent on them, and now they fall sick, and everything falls, right? So, and again, a lot of people have, they have life insurance, and most people actually think that life insurance only pays when you die, and that was the old type of life insurance. Most people, that's true. That's true, and that's why we're here because most people are still carrying the old type of life insurance around, right? It's like you're driving a, I don't know, like you're driving a 1990 Hyundai around in 2026. Some of the packages in the 2026, the 1990 Hyundai don't have the safety features or the new technology. You understand? So it's outdated. Most people's life insurance policies are outdated. But what if I told you there are policies that may allow you to access money while you're still alive if something happens, something major happen, right? And again, I've been around for a while, and I've helped clients file claims for things like cancer, right? For things like a massive injury with these policies. Exactly. Things that we don't plan for. Things that we don't plan for. I shared a story before you got on of a client of mine who, she lives over here in Maryland, in PG County, big, massive house, real nice house. She's a nurse doing well for herself. And she got diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 3, last year. And the check they're about to cut her is is 2 times her annual salary as a nurse. that will allow her to be able to stay home, pay mortgage, take care of the children because she got 3 children, pay her car note, and just focus on healing and going back to get her treatment and things like that, and don't have to worry about how to pay bills. The money's in the bank account, it's on auto pay, and all she gotta do is just go back and forth to a doctor's appointment and just focus on her health, right? So that's what we're going. That's what we're talking about tonight. It's what's called living benefits, and most people have basic life insurance. The life insurance that if you die, they pay. That's it. It doesn't cover anything else. Okay. And trust me, this might be the most important conversation that you will hear all year. I know there's a lot going on right now in the country, and people are talking about different things right now. But I've been in this industry now for about 18 years or so, and a lot of people. I mean, this same young lady I was telling you about is a healthy young lady who's a nurse who takes care of herself, and then something like this happens. So, she's younger than me, so I'm 48, so she got to be about 43, maybe, real young, real young. Oh yeah, I did. She's been a client for 10 years now. And this is something that as agents, you're writing these policies for people you don't expect it to happen, but you just go in and you do your good job for your client just in case something happened. You understand? So, and this is why I always tell agents, like, when you deal with clients, man, you got to go in the house securing the client and their family. You don't go into the house just doing whatever. You, like, prime example, about last year December, I met with a client who somebody went to the house and put together a mortgage protection plan for this client. And when I was looking at the whole policy, that policy runs out right about age 79. The client didn't even know that, because this agent, he, exactly, and this agent probably has to be new, or just went and didn't know what they were doing. I don't know. So we always tell clients, like, listen, when you get that policy, you want to review it with your agent, and also you want to review it, yourself. So listen, let me just talk in there for a second. As you're on this live right now, you're watching this. If you haven't had a policy review in a while, and you have a policy, and you want a complimentary policy review, feel free to message me, DM me, and we can connect, and I can review your plan for you, and let you know what you have going on, see if it benefits you, if it still suit your family as to the reason why you initially open it, and also, most importantly, if it's structured properly. So that's important, right? Um, before we go further, before we go further, right? I need some participation here from you guys. Okay. Type me in the chat if you already have life insurance. Type me in the chat if you already have life insurance. Right? And type not yet if you don't. Okay. No judgment here. No judgment at all. Okay. I just want to see where my people are tonight. That's all. Because surprisingly, a lot of people don't know this. 48% of the country don't have life insurance. So if you don't have it, you wouldn't be alone. And hopefully what I want to do today is educate you enough where you decide that, you know what? Okay, it's about time. All right. So type me in the chat if you already have life insurance. Okay. Here's the problem. Most family are not financially destroyed by death. Most family are not financially destroyed by death. They are destroyed by illnesses. Let that sink in. Most families are destroyed by illnesses, not death. Right? Government research shows that as people age, many will need some form of long-term support. And according to Social Security, if you guys don't know, about 1 in 4 of today's young worker will experience a disability before retirement age. 1 in 4. Not 1 in 1,000, 1 in 4. So when people tell me, Maxwell, that probably won't happen to me, the stats says otherwise. Everybody I meet believe that they are Superman and Superwoman. Everybody, they believe nothing will happen to them. As a matter of fact, about 2-3 years ago, I believe, I did a policy for a gentleman out in the great state of Georgia, right? And it was a mortgage protection plan for this gentleman. And I went there on a Saturday to write the policy for this gentleman. And I remember him saying, I don't know why we need this. Blah, 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 blah. It costs too much. We just got the mortgage. And I was like, hey, we got a wife here. I said, you got 2 little kids. You make about 125 a year. Your wife only brings home 65. If something happens, will she be able to afford this mortgage? And she clearly looked at me and said, no. Like, she's like, no, I'll be able to. And we end up doing the policy for the gentleman. Fast forward 1 year later, the gentleman had, I believe, a heart attack while driving. And he passed away. Right? And I believe he was probably maybe 50 at the time. So I'm sure he thought nothing would happen to him. If I even go back a little bit further, about 4 or 5 years ago, I wrote a policy for a young gentleman, like half my age. The gentleman had to be like 25 years old in Massachusetts. Okay, a $500,000 policy I wrote for this gentleman. 4 months later, I'm in Georgia, having a good time, seeing clients and just, seeing the area. And I got a phone call. On the background, initially, it sounded like people was like, it was just like a loud background, but I didn't put it together until I realized that people was actually screaming and crying in the background. Because the young lady who called me couldn't even get the word out. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, so just died. I was like, what do you mean? And it was like, yeah, they found his body in the river. And this gentleman had to be like 25 years old. So when we assume that things won't happen to us, unless you have a crystal ball or something like that, nobody can assume that. I'm sure that gentleman who had everything going for him was a nurse on his way to being a doctor, had 2 properties, had a fiance, life was going well. And then him and the fiance actually drowned. All right. So I want you guys to keep that in mind, because the data says that 1 in 4 young people today would experience some form of disability before retirement. Okay? Now let's talk about money. Let's talk money because sickness is emotional, but it is also financial. National care surveys shows assisted living can run tens of thousands of dollars per year. Assisted living. I'm over here in Maryland, and in Maryland, an assisted living facility costs $110,000 a year. I don't know what state that you're in, and you can look up your state. How much does assisted living care cost in your state? And mind you, that dollar amount is before medication, is before special treatments, is before time off of work. So now the real questions become, where is the money coming from? And you guys can look up your state again. I know over here in Maryland, assisted living costs about $110,000 a year. So if something unexpected happened to you, where will you get the money from? Are you going to bankrupt your savings? Are you going to max out your credit card if you have $100K worth of credit cards? Are family members going to chip in? Don't bank on that one. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because that seems to be when people start to disappear, when things like that happens. Let me tell you a story. Okay? And this is something that happens often. Someone has a stroke. They survive, thank God. But now they can't work like they used to before. So the income drops dramatically. But the bills don't. The pressure starts to rise in the household. And suddenly now the family is having meetings about money when they should be focusing on you recovering. I've seen it so many times. I'm going to use a story that's real close to me. I have a good friend who I went to school with. We recently just buried him about 3 weeks ago, maybe. But it took roughly 4 to 5 weeks for them to bury him because, one, he didn't have any life insurance. So I'm sure it took the family a while to get the money together. But secondly, though, before he passed away, when I started this business, I remember sitting down with him and his first wife to talk to him about life insurance. And they said, oh, no, we're okay, we're good. And I kept on pressing and pressing and pressing until I just, washed my hands and said, you know what? If they need me, they'll call me. Then I found out last year, because he had called me asking me, can he get life insurance? I was like, oh, look, he's finally coming around. And he said, well, I'm going to let you know something. I said, what's going on? It's like, I got pancreatic cancer. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But we can't cover that. He's like, yeah, I didn't think so. I've been calling around other places and nobody was able to cover me. We got to check with you to see if you might have something that other places don't. And he was a business owner also, so you know how that went. Everything starts to fall. When you start to fall sick and you can no longer work, things start to fall apart. Life insurance with living benefits, life insurance with living benefits can mean cash may be available to you during moments like this. So when I started this live, I mentioned how most people have outdated life insurance policies. They have basic life insurance policy, which means you die, they pay, nothing else. Nothing else. If you're watching this live right now, if you've ever watched a loved one go through something medical, I want you to type I understand. If you've ever watched a loved one go through some medical issues, I want you to type I understand. Here's another story for you. An individual with cancer and they have a spouse. They don't have any life insurance. They don't have any long-term care. They don't have any living benefits. Now the spouse has to become the caregiver. Her income has to get cut in half. As a matter of fact, within my organization, I have an agent whose mother is going through this right now, taking care of her father. So when a situation like this happens, you have no choice but to care for your spouse. And in most cases, it has to be 24-hour care. So it's going to be time off, it's going to be leave. The spouse probably not going to get enough rest. See, when I talk to people about these particular policy is to bring you peace of mind. In a situation like that, for example, if they would have had a policy, the spouse could have been tended to by a nurse aide while the other spouse at work working, and then when they get home, they can take over. But when you don't have any savings, you don't have any life insurance with living benefits, now you either have to retire early to tend to your spouse, because if you keep missing work, at some point it's going to be a conversation between you and your manager as to what happens next. How do we keep you here? Right? The spouse has to take their loved one, travel for treatments, sometimes hotel stays, sometimes you have to go to specialists. You're literally fighting for health and fighting the bank account at the same time. And some people are taking care of their parents right now. They take care of their mom and their dad. My mom is a nurse, right? And she shares stories with me all day long about people that she take care of and how they have to alternate children to come in and tend to them because the money sometimes might not be enough to pay for a nurse aide full time. You're helping your parents, they need help with everyday activities. I remember one time over here in Baltimore, I saw a lady, she's probably 60 years old, and I was talking to her about this. And the kid said, "Oh no, we don't need that insurance. We'll take care of you, mom. We'll take care of you, mom." This is a real story. It's like 4 years ago. "Oh, you don't need that insurance. We'll take care of you, mom." I'm like, "Okay, no problem. Here's my card. Call me if you need me." And real talk. Literally 3 years later, 3 years later, the daughter called me and said, "Hey, you stood at my mom's house a few years ago. I don't know if you remember me, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, what's going on?" She's like, "Oh, do you know my mom did a little something with you?" I'm like, "No, you guys said you didn't need it." And I was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "Oh, well, my mom, she had a stroke." And I'm like, "Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that." And now between her and the brother, they're having an issue as to who's gonna care for mom, right? So a lot of people will try to avoid. I want to say trying to avoid paying the cost to protect yourself in the future, right? They want to avoid paying the cost today to protect themselves for the future. And now after that scenario, I always tell parents, never ever 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 bank on your kids. I don't care how much. Listen, your kids can love you. They can love you all they want to. That's fine. That's great. But we not talking about love now. We talking about money. We talking about finances. Because a lot of people don't really know how much it costs to care for a lot. So a nurse aide, again, I'm in Maryland. You can check your state. Places like Maryland, Massachusetts, California, Florida, the list goes on. On the average, to have a so let's say you say I don't have money to go into an assisted living that might run you $110,000 a year, but I want a nurse aide to come in and help me out. In Maryland, that's still gonna run you about $5,800 a month. That's almost 7 G's. That's almost $70,000. I'm sorry, a year. See, a lot of people don't know how this is going to affect them until it actually affects them. Okay? Like, I'm going to give you an example. You're paying auto insurance right now, right? And sometimes you get mad. Why am I paying this much for auto insurance? Blah, blah, blah. Until the day you get into an accident and they replace your car. And now you feel better about having auto insurance, right? Give me a second, guys. So I always tell parents, never, ever, ever, ever. If your child say, "Oh no," as a matter of fact, I had a client in DC, and she had her son sit in the presentation, right? And the son was like, "Oh, mom, don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. We'll take care of you." And the mom said, "Hey, Max, where's the paperwork?" The child was telling the mom, "You don't need that, mom, and nothing's gonna happen to you. And if something happens, we'll take care of you." And the mom said, "Yeah, yeah, 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 I hear you." Max, where's the paperwork? Because here's the deal. Even if your child do want to do it, because I'm assuming your children love you. Let's just assume that, right? They can love you all they want to, but love have nothing to do with finances and money. A lot of people don't know, well, number one, how much this costs, and number two, how much it consumes your time bathing a person, clothing a person, toileting. If you are watching this right now and you are a nurse or a caregiver, please comment in the chat and say, I understand. If you are a nurse or a caretaker and you've experienced what I'm saying, please comment in the chat and say, I understand. If you are taking care of a loved one right now, right, and you are bathing them, clothing them, feeding them, changing their tubes and stuff like that, I want you to type in the chat, I understand. Right? Because this is the thing that people don't factor in. The time that it takes outside of money is that extra, the sleepless nights, the running back and forth, how exhausting all these things take. What if part of your life insurance could be used to help in situations like this? Again, I've been around for a while and I got stories for days. Over here in Maryland, Randallstown, Maryland, which is a part of Baltimore, about a few years ago, I wrote a policy for a Trinidadian family, right? And some of you guys who, if you're on this live, you understand sometimes with foreigners, one, they don't, especially depends on what part of the world that they came from. Sometimes they look at life insurance in a strange way. And it's even stranger when you're talking to them about life insurance for their children. So I wrote the policy for the mom and the dad, and I said, hey, let's get the kids covered. And they was like, oh no, we don't talk about life insurance for kids. No, we don't want that. I said, okay, no problem. Now I knew the mom really, but I didn't know the husband, the father. So I kept on dripping, giving the mom information as to, hey, why this is needed, blah, blah, blah. And then she met me one day at Panera Bread, and we started having conversations about it. And she ended up opening the policy for on her own for the three children. The middle child, which is her daughter, years later ended up getting pregnant and having a baby, which triggered her lupus. And she had to go through so much. I think at one point she had like a because of the lupus, she had a heart attack, right? And the blessing in this was that same policy that they didn't want to talk about or do for the child is the same one that helped the mother sustain and be able to take care of the child and take care of medical bills and expenses. Because we end up doing $250K policy for that child. And we was able to collect $100,000 from that on the living benefit side, which allowed the mom to be able to work part-time at her job and spend most of the time caring for the daughter. So, I talk about this a lot. If you got, surprisingly, a lot of people, because I thought everybody was a Denzel Washington fan, but I guess, I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Denzel. I watch all his movies. He did one movie called John Q. When you guys get a moment, go watch that. That movie brought me to tears, and it made me start to think about my kids and how I would never want to be in that position. In the movie, John Q, they had a child, and the child had a I forgot the name of the heart, but the child had a heart that was bigger, that was too big for his body, and the heart started to fail, right? And I believe the surgery for a replacement heart for this child was about 250K or something like that. And for the life of them, they couldn't come up with the money. We're trying to pull equity from the house, breaking the piggy bank, pulling money from the bank account, trying to get support from the neighbors and the co-workers and family. They could not come up with the money for the treatment, and he ended up holding the hospital hostage. You guys should go watch that movie, John Q. Fast forward later, I got into the insurance industry, and that's how I say, wow, if they had life insurance with living benefits, he wouldn't have to go through all that, because he did end up going to jail because he held up the hospital. The boy did end up getting a heart, but it was a story. But when I listen, you should go watch that movie with your family tonight. If you're walking around here without life insurance with living benefits, if your children don't have any life insurance, you should go watch the movie John Q tonight, and you will understand what I mean. Now, not all carriers have life insurance with living benefits. That's why I say initial beginning. Most people have the old version of life insurance. The newer version, which again, not all carriers have it right now, right? Comes with something. If you experience things like chronic condition, okay, and pretty much a chronic condition by definition is, if that could be by way of sickness or illnesses, if you are unable to perform 2 out of 6 of the daily living activity, things like bathing yourself, clothing yourself, continent, toileting, etc., feeding yourself, etc., right? That's what deems you chronically ill. Critical illness is things like cancer, heart attack, stroke, dementia, renal failure, etc., stuff like that, right? And then terminal diagnosis is pretty much you go to the doctor and they say you have 12 months to live. Now, let me touch on that one for a second, because here's the deal. Sometimes when doctors tell a person, hey, listen, you got 12 months to live, go home and get your affairs in order, they're really looking at your finances and saying to themselves, this person can afford special treatments, because special treatment to sustain you and maintain your life is gonna cost. But if you have life insurance with living benefits, you can say, hey doc, how much is a second opinion? Or how much is that better medicine? I got money through my life insurance. And that the doctor will now say, okay, now we're talking. Okay, this is the healthcare industry that we're talking about. They are money driven. So you can protect yourself now if a situation like that was to happen, and say, hey, listen, okay, I know you gave me a terminally ill diagnosis. I know most people don't come back from that, but there are some treatments and some medicine that can sustain your life for a few years or so, that will allow you to be able to spend more time with your family, make up time you didn't have before, right? So again, every provider is different. Not everybody have these benefits right now. Okay. Now, I know some people are watching this live and they say, "Oh, I got life insurance on my job." Okay, but what happens if you leave your job? That's number one. What happens if you retire? That's number two. And what happens if the company changes the plan? Because the job insurance you don't control, and you actually don't even own that policy at the job. It's only good for you while you're there. And number two, the job insurance have no living benefits. It's just a basic policy. Okay. Now you might have another or someone who's watching and say, "Oh, I'm too young for this." Yes, and that's usually when coverage can be more affordable. Coverage is cheaper when you're younger. Okay. I've actually heard somebody said, this Caribbean gentleman said, I'll just save, you know, the money. So I pulled out a calculator and I said, okay, how much you have in the bank right now? Less than $1,000. So you're now telling me, as a 40-year-old, that you have less than $1,000 in the bank, but some way somehow you're gonna save enough money to cover your funeral expenses, to leave your wife and your children something, or cover an expense for a long-term care condition. Stop kidding yourself. Stop kidding yourself. Not true. Not true. Most people end up going financially bankrupt due to a health condition. As a matter of fact, some of you might not know this. There are two really main reasons why people end up losing their house. Number one is somebody died. I'm sorry. Number two is somebody died. Number one is somebody falls sick. Sickness is the main reason why people end up losing their home. Because when you fall sick, you can't work. If you can't work, you can't pay the bills. At least if a person dies, they might have some life insurance sometimes that come in and they can help the family sustain. But if you're alive and you fall sick and you don't have any living benefits at all, everything starts to cripple at that moment. Listen to me carefully. I have never sat with a family that said, "Man, we bought too much protection." It's never happened. I have never sat down with a family that say, "Man, we bought too much life insurance." But I have met many who said, "I wish we handled this earlier." I've had clients call me or clients' children call me because their parent passed away and they say, "Did my dad ever get that policy from you, Maxwell?" I'm like, "No, he stopped answering my phone call." I've had a young lady call me and say, "Hey, we can't find any of my dad's policy that he said he had. Did he take one out with you?" I'm like, "No." "Can you come to the house and see and go through these policies that we found and let me know if any one of them is good?" I'll go to the house and all the policies are either dead and the mama has to move in with the daughter. If you are an insurance agent and you're on this live right now, I want you to type "I've been through that before" on the chat. I want you to, if you have experienced clients calling you and say, "Hey, did my mom and dad ever take that policy out with you?" I want you to type "I've experienced that before." I even had a police officer client of mine. I remember sitting down with him and say, "Hey, okay, we got you taken care of. What's going on with your mom?" He's like, "Oh, my mom got insurance." I was like, "You sure?" He's like, "Yeah, my mom, she take care of stuff like that." I was like, okay, cool. Then he happened to call me one day, like, you know what? I thought about what you said. You know what? Let me just open something on the side just in case you might need extra. Because you know my mom is strong. She might be here for a long time. So I know insurance, I know burial is gonna cost more later. I was like, oh, that's smart. And then the mom passed 4 years later. And they ransacked the house and couldn't find any policy that he claimed the mom had. The only way they was able to bury the mother was the life insurance that I opened with him for the mom. So if he never opened that policy, he would have had to break the bank to go take care of mom. Right? This conversation we're having today is not about fear. It's not. It's about preparing. It's about preparation. It's about love. It's about responsibility. That's all. That's all. Listen, I don't want this to be a long one today. If you got on this chat today, I really appreciate you. And if you want to see, if you're currently on this live right now and you don't have any policy at all, or you need more understanding of living benefits, right? Or you want to see what you may qualify for. Because some people will think, oh, I just did a policy for a guy the other day who had cancer 4 years ago. I've met some people who believe because they've had cancer or stroke in the past, no insurance company will carry them. Now, there are some companies who won't take you, but I work with a lot of companies that will take some people like that. So if you want to find out what you qualify for, let me drop my phone number to you guys, and you can text me directly. And I will also give you my website that you can go to kind of like fill it out and let me know what you're looking for, and I'll get back to you ASAP. My phone number, my direct number where you can text me, and I say text because I get calls every day from all these marketing people, the cruise people, the people trying to give you loans for business. So I don't really pick up the phone too much unless I know who it is. So if you text me, I'll get back to you right away. My number is 443-208-5480. That's 443-208-5480. Or you can go to my website, which is TitanEvolutionGroup.com. That's TitanEvolutionGroup.com. And we'll see what your options are. No pressure, just straight information. And if you're interested, we'll guide you along the way. Okay? Listen, other than that, if what you heard today makes sense to you, please share this with your friends and family, because it's not only older folks who are getting sick. Younger folks. Doing this live, I just talked about 3 people who are under 50 that have had health concerns. So if you got value from this live today, number one, I want you to hit the like button or the thumbs up button. I want you to also share this with people that you think might be interested in learning more about this. And outside that, hey, listen, I thank you all for getting on, and I'll catch you on the next live. Have a good one.